What's going on, you guys? Today in Diablo 4, I'm going to be showing you how to get all of your uber uniques, all of your regular unique pieces you might need for your build to really push it over the top. There's some very easy and efficient methods to getting not only all of your uniques for your build and getting enough of them that you can actually get the good or close to max rolls on them, but also start getting all of your uber uniques like Andariel's, the Melted Heart of Selig, your Ring of Starless Skies, your Shaco, every single one of them. And I'm going to show you the best way to do it. You can get basically one of each, hopefully fairly quickly. Now, there are some portions of it that are luck based, but you can really turn luck in your favor using a couple tricks that I'm going to show you. And just to give you an example of why you should be actually farming out your regular uniques and not just your uber uniques. For instance, this Pain Gorger's Gauntlets is the one that I used to use for my bash build. And you can see the multiplier down at the bottom gives me 150% increased damage to marked enemies. Now, eventually I found this one at 180% increased damage, but by swapping this out for an extra 30% to marked enemies, I actually do an insane amount more damage. Usually around 10 to 20 million extra damage on good critical strike hits, which ends up adding to quite a lot of damage. Again, that's why you should focus on farming out, again, not only just uber uniques, but your regular uniques to maximize your build. That being said, let's go through every single way you should get your uber uniques and your regular uniques to make sure you can A, farm them most efficiently, but B, get those really good juicy drops for your build that are gonna make it overpowered. Now, first I want to touch on the most obvious part, which is the Resplendent Sparks. Resplendent Sparks are the best way to definitely get your first uber unique if you haven't found it yet, because A, it's surefire and 100%, and B, it's not luck based, although you can perfectly get drops before you get 4 Resplendent Sparks. It's just depending on really how you're playing. So as you can see right here, we currently have 3 Resplendent Sparks. Now, there are 4 specific ways you can get these sparks. And again, once you come over to the Alchemist and go to the Transmutation tab, you can transmute these sparks once you have 4 of them into a uber unique of your choosing. And again, keep in mind, as long as you don't have a high level gem in here, for instance, I have a red ruby in my Harlequin Crest. If you have that ruby in there, it's going to make the actual piece of gear level 90. And you can see you have the choice of all 7 uber uniques, so you can pick whichever one is best, either going to suit your build or you absolutely need for it. This is one of the guarantees that you get from gathering these Resplendent Sparks. So your first priority main build, if you need one of these to complete it, it's actually fairly easy to get this way. Now, there are 2 primary things. It needs obviously the 4 Resplendent Sparks, and it needs 50 million gold. And given the gold event that comes up here on, I believe, June 6th, you should have no problem getting lots of gold. You can see I have 139 million, and I honestly got this much just from playing yesterday from selling items, which I'll talk about here in a minute. Now let's go over the 4 ways you can get these uber uniques. The first one, and probably one of the hardest ones, is going to be killing Uber Lilith. Now, obviously, you do this here at the Echo of Hatred. Now, once you jump over here and start fighting her, the new mechanics for Season 4 that were implemented for Lilith are some of the mechanics are a little bit more forgiving, and I'm going to work on an in-depth Lilith guide, but essentially, the mechanics are more forgiving. They don't necessarily hurt you as badly, but it's like the other Uber bosses now, so that way, if you get hit with specific attacks, you get stacks on your character, and these negative stacks stack up, and you can't get rid of them throughout the fight. The more stacks and mechanics you get hit by, the more damage you overall continue to take. It just goes up and up and up until you can't take anymore and you die. With Uber Lilith's added health and other small changes, she is definitely the hardest boss to fight currently in Diablo 4. So this is going to be your hardest Resplendent Spark to get, but if you get somebody to carry you, or eventually if you build up your character enough to do it, you need to make sure you beat her to get your Resplendent Spark because it's very valuable. Your second spark you get for beating any Uber boss, specifically what I would focus on because of the drops, is the level 200 Tormented Duriel that you can actually fight down here at the Gaping Crevasse, or alternatively you could beat Andariel at the Hanged Man's Hollow. Either way, if you can beat either of those 2 bosses, you'll also get your second Resplendent Spark, and there's plenty of groups carrying for that if you actually can't beat the boss yourself on Discord, including me. I do carry on there as well. So if you need, jump in there, grab a carry real quick, and you can beat the boss very quickly if you're having troubles to get that Resplendent Spark. Now, the third Resplendent Spark is going to come straight from your Iron Wolves. Now, your Iron Wolf commander right here, once you complete the Iron Wolf's reputation for tier 18, you are going to get your Resplendent Spark as well as a couple other rewards. This will give you your officially 3rd one. Now, the important thing here is that will give you your 3rd, but you still need a 4th. Now, the other way to get a 4th at this point is going to be getting one through 2 separate methods. The fourth is going to be gotten through completing the Iron Wolves on a brand new character. So if you create an alt and level all the way to tier 18 and collect the reward at the end, each alt character is capable of getting 1 Resplendent Spark from this as a reward. Now obviously that takes a little while, but if you're already playing some sort of alt character or have one, it might be worth it to go ahead and complete this out, so that way you can get that bonus at the end. That will give you your fourth that you'll be able to use to go ahead and craft one of the uber uniques of your choosing. Now the next best way to get your fourth Resplendent Spark is going to be by salvaging an uber unique. So I know that sounds silly. Why are you going to salvage an uber unique to get 1 Resplendent Spark to build another uber unique? Well, the truth is you can find uber uniques. All of them are very good pieces, but ones that you don't necessarily need for your build. That, or like you can see here, you can also find duplicates. So I have 2 Melted Hearts of Selig. Now, in my opinion, if I'm going to play a build and I want to sit there and level it and play it and push it to the end until I go to the next one, I'm just going to simply transfer my uber uniques over to that new build, since they all are essentially the same. There's no need to really have any duplicates. So by farming, I happen to get 2 of the same thing. So what I can actually do is take one of these, since they're exactly the same item. I can walk over here to the blacksmith, and this is the first time I'm doing it, so it kind of hurts a little bit, but it's okay. And then we're going to come over here to salvage. We're going to click this here and we're going to salvage it. Now, once we salvage it, you can see it's going to ask us, do we want to destroy it? I'm going to say accept, and we actually get 1 Resplendent Spark from that, meaning you don't have to go level up a whole new character, meaning you can get multiple Resplendent Sparks by actually salvaging additional uber uniques. So now you can see when I look in here at my inventory, I currently have 4 and now have the ability to craft any uber unique that I want. Let's say I didn't necessarily need an uber unique, but I wanted one, and I came in here and bought, let's say, Harlequin Crest. I actually found mine, got lucky, but again, it's a great thing to have to continually level your characters. Now you can see this is actually requiring a level 90 currently, but that's because this gem, this ruby, is actually inside of it, and this is a level 90 gem. So if we actually come over here and unsocket this gem, you can see it now goes down to requiring level 35, meaning if I'm leveling a brand new character, something like the Harlequin Crest with the 4% regs to skills and 20% DR and max life can give me a huge bump in terms of how quickly my other alts level and how powerful they are straight out of the gate. So keep that in mind. If you do have Resplendent Sparks and you don't necessarily need it for a build, you can save it, or if you have a piece that can benefit your build and benefit your alt character's leveling progress as well, you can grab it and then use it by simply just throwing it in your stash and grabbing it by another character once they hit level 35, throw it on, and make the leveling process for all of your alts much easier. Just keep in mind you need to not have a gem in there, and then you can slot in a gem once you put it on your new character and start leveling, and then as soon as you get done, you can swap it back and forth. Now you can actually get a lot more runs with your mats, which is really the main problem with doing runs currently. Stones and mats are an issue, but there's a way to get multiple runs, which I'll show you just a little bit later in this video, so you can get the most uber unique drops as possible and maybe get like 4 or 8 of these things over what it would take to level a full character, giving you potentially 4 to 8 Resplendent Sparks versus just 1 or 2 in the same time span. So next, before we get into farming, we're going to talk about the actual bosses themselves. So Max Raw, I'll link this in the description, has a full drop table list of everything that can drop for each boss type. Now obviously if you're farming any regular unique or uber unique, this is super useful. Let's say, because a lot of people play Barb that are on my channel, because I love Barb, let's say we're looking for Romuldanis. Now you can see here Romuldanis is going to drop from Lord Zur, and then if we search this page again, it's also going to drop from Grigor. Now Grigor for a fact, because the mats that you actually use for him, which are living steel, to get additional mats to run Duriel, drops this like non-stop. So it's good to go ahead and look up which unique you're trying to get to know which boss you need to farm it from, because I'm going to tell you right now, all of these specific barbarian uniques, Rage of Haragath, Battle Trance, Butcher's Cleaver, Romuldanis, and Twin Strikes, I have gotten multiple times from just simply going and hitting this boss one time and getting mats from it, from the level 75 version, not the tormented version, just the level 75 version, to actually get some mats for Duriel. And I've gotten all of these uniques multiple times over, which is really why you should be checking this, because you can easily go farm out not only a unique that you need for your build if you don't have one very easily, but you can also go find a better unique, meaning Romuldanis, if mine only had 0.2 and I used it forever as a multiplier, I could go easily farm one that's 0.4, and it really only takes like no time. I found every single one of these uniques multiple times in under an hour of farming it. Super easy, which is why you should be farming these bosses for your build. And again, there's instructions for where they're all at and all the materials that they take. Now, obviously you can farm any of these uniques. So now that we know how to get the uniques for our build 100%, we want to know how to get our uber uniques and the best drop chances of doing so. So essentially, I believe any of these bosses might have the chance to drop uber uniques. It's just very rare, so they're not really listed on here. The two bosses you need to pay attention to for uber uniques specifically are going to be Duriel and Andariel. Now, there's a couple different ways that this works, and it can actually greatly help out your class no matter what you're playing. So by fighting Duriel, we can go and actually fight the level 100 version of Duriel. So again, Duriel can be farmed from the Gaping Crevasse down at the bottom left corner of the map. And one of the best ways to farm Duriel if you're playing solo is to simply do the regular farming method. Now, this is going to require using 2 Mucus Slick eggs and 2 Shards of Agony. For reference, in order to get the Mucus Slick eggs, you'll need to come over here to the Malignant Burrow and beat that boss at the end. That boss will give you 1 Mucus Slick egg each time you do it, which means to do 1 regular run of regular Duriel, you're going to need to do this twice to get 2 Mucus Slick eggs for this boss. Now, additionally, these Shards of Agony are going to be obtained right here from the Hall of the Penitent from killing Grigor. Again, the same thing applies. You need to go run this boss and do it 2 times in order to get 2 Shards of Agony to run, again, this regular version of Duriel, which is probably best for most solo players to run. Now, again, without getting too confusing, both of those dungeons are going to require mats. When you fight Grigor, it's going to require you use 5 living steel. Living steel is obtained a lot from the Helltides, so that's why you want to make sure you're farming Helltides a lot. But again, Grigor will cost 5 living steel to spawn him in and fight him. Additionally, the Malignant Burrow boss will cost a couple different things. It will primarily cost the Malignant Heart, the Gurgling Head, the Blackened Femur, and the Trembling Hand. As long as you have those, again, you'll be able to spawn that boss in. Again, get the Mucus Slick eggs and the Shards of Agony that are needed to summon regular Duriel. And you can see here, as we fight the level 100 Duriel, it's a very easy fight if your character really is at all leveled. But once he dies here, you can see we're gonna get a unique item every single time, and also some additional drops. Now again, this is a 925 item power X-Fall, and you get a unique each time you do this. So for solo players, this really is a decent method. Now what makes this great is not only just uber uniques, but your regular uniques again, because if you're playing, let's say, a barbarian, there are certain items that might be a little tougher to get, like the Tusk Helm of Jorts the Mighty, that actually works well for a lot of different builds. Now this is the only barbarian specific unique, meaning you actually have a decent chance of dropping the Tusk Helm. And I can tell you from plenty of Duriel runs, I have gotten about 1 million of these things at this point. So if you're looking for that unique, that's perfect. Again, if you're looking as a druid and you want Tempest Roar, you have a great chance of getting it. Just these 2 items and these other non-class specific uniques right here. Out of those, you're almost guaranteed to drop a Tempest Roar at some point in the near future. And again, the same goes for Sorcerer uniques, Rogue uniques, and Necromancer uniques that you're looking for that could really benefit your build. Now again, this is where the uber uniques come into play. So again, you have all of your uber uniques here that you can possibly drop. And again, salvage if you need additional Resplendent Sparks to target a specific one for your build. Now there are specific chances for these uber uniques to drop, ideally so far averaging about 2%, meaning 1 in about 40 runs or so, you'll typically get an uber unique. But again, I've gotten much luckier than that, so there's plenty of room to get more. Now again, if you run out of those mats, now you can also do the same thing with Andariel versus Duriel in case you want to swap up the mats. And you can see here the drop table from Andariel is basically the exact same drop table. So it doesn't matter if you run Duriel or Andariel. I actually find Andariel to be a little bit easier of a boss. I typically carry groups for free, again, in the Discord. Just by joining, they can get free runs just using their mats, because I can't supply mats to everyone, but I can carry them to wins against these bosses, and they get uber uniques from them. Again, and they rotate mats while I run and kill the boss for them. It's a win-win situation. Everybody wins and has to use less mats this way. So it doesn't matter which one you go for. Again, Andariel is just a little bit different. Andariel is going to be over here at the Hanged Man's Hall. And you can see Andariel here follows the same method. 2 mats for both to run a regular version, get 1 unique, or run the Tormented version, get 5 to 6 uniques, again, including the Stygian Stones. And again, the mats for that are going to be these Pincushion Dolls and the Sand Scorched Shackles. To get the Pincushion Dolls, you're going to need to beat the Beast in Ice. You'll need to go to the Beast in Ice at the Glacial Fissure. Now, in order to actually go there, you actually have to come in here and craft a sigil. And once you go in here to craft Ancestral, you can see the Glacial Fissure here for the higher level version and the lower level version. Don't waste your stones on any of these higher level versions for any of these bosses. Make sure you just craft the regular one. Once you craft that, you can then go into your menu and activate that sigil. Once you activate it, you can see the Glacial Fissure dungeon, will pop up right under here near Kiovashad, so you'll need to beat the Beast in Ice in order to get that material. Now the other material, the Sand Scorched Shackles, will be obtained by defeating Zur, and you can define and defeat him right over here at the Darkened Way in Fractured Peaks. That's how you're going to be able to get both of the materials needed to summon Andariel. So whether you're doing either of them are going to give you a ton of awesome uniques with great chances at uber uniques, especially if you do, again, the tormented version. And make sure you're rotating out with people in Discord if possible, because otherwise you can run it solo, but this way gives you 4 times the rewards for every single material you spend, and is way better to get all your uber uniques in 10 or 15 or 20 hours versus over 100 hours. Now this regular version of Duriel has a much smaller chance of dropping uber uniques technically. In order to get the highest chance to farm uber uniques, you'll need to be killing tormented Duriel. Now the problem with this is A, the boss is difficult, and B, it requires more materials. Now it actually requires 3 times the amount of regular materials for 5 times the reward. So you'll be getting at least 5 uniques, sometimes 6 each run. So instead of it costing you 10 eggs and 10 shards of agony for the same amount of loot, it's only going to cost you 6. The caveat is it costs 2 Stygian stones, which at this point in Diablo 4 are very rare to get unless you get them from the regular sources, like completing your Iron Wolves questline or getting lucky from world bosses or the pit. But if you complete a lot of the sources that give you these, you can stack them up and save them and use them. So I'm going to show you how to stretch them out the most you can. You're going to get 5 or 6 unique drops from killing this boss once. It is a lot more difficult, but if you can manage it, it's totally worth doing. The reason is because you can actually stretch this out to not only get 1 try for all of these mats, but 4 total tries if you do this correctly. Now, I know a lot of you that play are playing solo, and this is where you're gonna need to take a step forward if you really want to farm out these uber uniques. And why I'm saying this is because the official Diablo Discord, whether people like it or not, is the way, in the ultimate way, to farm uber uniques. The reason is because you can get 4 people to rotate. And what I mean by that is you can jump in here to do rotations with groups. So 4 of you can be running tormented Duriel at once. It'll make the fight super short more than likely, so you can kill the boss very easy. But what you can actually do is run using your mats and get 5 or 6 uber unique drops. And then you'll rotate with another person and they will use their mats and you'll get 5 or 6 more. And then the other 2 will rotate and you'll get 5 or 6 more, and then 5 or 6 more again. So you're going to get 20 to 24 uniques with good chances at uber uniques just by doing this method right here and rotating. And again, you get all that with only having to use 1 actual rotation of your mats in specific. So let's say I have 20 Stygian stones here. That means if 2 stones gives us 4 runs with a group, that means we can be getting almost 40 runs of Duriel, meaning 160 to 180 unique items that drop. With by that time you're bound to get at least 1 or 2 uber uniques just by sheer numbers. So if you really want to get your uber uniques and get as many of them as possible to spec out your build, rotating via the official Discord or some other communication method is the best way to farm them, because otherwise you're gonna have to farm all of these stones and all of these mats every single time. And let me tell you, it is exhausting to have to do that. It's much easier to rotate with other players using mats and get all the rewards from just doing that. Now again, materials for the uber bosses can be gathered from a lot of places in the game, so you should really almost probably never run out of them. I'm going to go over a couple of the major ones. Things like Distilled Fear you get from fighting bosses in all sorts of dungeons. You shouldn't really have to worry about that. Or Exquisite Blood. Exquisite Blood is what you're going to use for Zur, and Distilled Fear is going to be used for the Beast in Ice within the Glacial Fissure itself. Again, allowing us to get the mats to fight Andariel. The main ones you're going to have to be farming are the materials that we're going to need to get the mats for Duriel. And again, those are going to be the Gurgling Head, the Blackened Femur, the Trembling Hand, and the Malignant Heart for the Malignant Burrow, again giving us our Mucus Slick Eggs, and these Shards of Agony, which you'll have to farm from Grigor using Living Steel like we have here. Now, the Malignant materials can be farmed from Malignant bosses after world bosses, after dungeon bosses. They spawn after you generally complete stuff, and they will give you these rewards, as well as in Helltide is the perfect place to farm them. Also, the Living Steel you get from Helltides as well. So while you're doing Helltides and you're unlocking the chests, again, making sure you use your Profane Mind Cage in Helltide to get the most possible cinders, and you can unlock all of the primary like mystery chests in both regions. It's 4 chests every Helltide. Those will each give you a ton of Living Steel. If you do a couple of those, you should have enough to last you probably a lifetime. And again, like I mentioned, the Exquisite Blood you get naturally. You can see how much of it I have here. It's really insane how much they give you, as well as Distilled Fear for the other 2 bosses. So that's really all you need to worry about in terms of materials, but that's how you ideally all of the materials you need to beat the lower level bosses so you can get the mats for Andariel and Duriel. Again, if you follow those tips, it shouldn't be too difficult to get all of the uber uniques in the game. Granted, some of it is all luck based, but with the Resplendent Sparks system and allowing you to get some of that, as well as the drops from farming and how to farm efficiently like I've shown you in this video, you should be able to use most of your mats and hopefully start getting a bunch of these uber uniques like your Shaco and all of the other good stuff to really make your build overpowered. That being said, if this video helped you out, drop a like, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.